Hello everyone. I'm going to explain the user interface-based access control in Swift coding. We can think of multiple ways that you can take user credentials, the user login and password. Of course, it can pass. And then we're thinking of a role-based access control as well. So we can take three information from user, and the combination of a login and password may fail or pass, and their role as well. If both login name and password role all fails, then we don't provide anything, right? That's disable all user interface. Login ID and password fail, but role passed, that is nonsense. There's no such things available. However, here, login and password passed, but role fails, then we can enable the user interface that can reach to the non-sensitive data. If they all passed, for example, a login and with a proper password, and I have a special role, and depending upon that role, we can give another permission to be clickable. So when the guy click this button, then it goes to the highly sensitive data. So multiple different ways, different buttons available here. In between, there is a gray layer as well. So assigning all of these authorizations is maybe a state of the art. So you can try that. The consideration for this is for UI, when you create a UI for action, this is action. For example, button takes an action in response to user behaviors, right? So usually we declare this action components of that UI. To make it disabled or enabled, then we need to also declare outlets. So both together this, we can, for that button mine, for the button all or button mine, so button all, button mine. Initially it is disabled, and then depending upon the success of that verification, for example, CRAD is, let's say that is the dictionary, the user ID and password pairs in that dictionary, but in our case we create another array. So the value to the key will be an array. So the key is nothing but user ID, and then value is an array that contains password and role. Okay, so initially we bring up the password, which is the first element of that array, and then compare that with the user input password. If they passed, then we allow this button. And further, if a role is matched with the user input, then we also allow another buttons. So depending on the button, we may have separate view controllers. So what happens here is that this is navigation controller. This is our main view controller. And if you have two buttons, then this goes to that view controller. Purple goes to another controller, and the orange button goes to another controllers. In our case, for example, this purple, if I have a special role, then I can see all the transactions of all students' sensor data posting. If I don't give my role, which means if I want to log in as simply a user, a regular user, then I can see the sensor data posting transactions of mine only. So this is mine, this is for all. In order to send the data from this view controller to another through the button clicking, then we need to prepare something here. Okay, we need to use a method called the prepare, which has two parameters. Okay, so for this is the name of the variables. Internally, we call it segue. For external, for the color to use, there will be 4. So we use only internal. So we use a segue. If you see here segue is predefined. So it has the field name called the identifier and destination. So we need to choose because we have two segues from main view controller to the next view controllers. We have two segues. See here, there is a segues. Two segues are linked between this main view controller and multiple other next level view controllers. So two segues or multiple segues. So if you have multiple segues, then each segue has identifier. So we choose that identifier. If that segue is SG all, this is a segue ID that we defined. So you will see that in now. So I defined this. This goes to that view controller. Therefore, destination is that view controller. This is view controller's name, and the other segue goes to this different names of view controller. So I assigned that to this variable, destination 1 and destination 2. In the destination 1, in the remote side, this view controller, there I should define a variable. That variable hold the data that is sent from this main view controller. If I say list all, or if I say, oh, I want to send the login ID to that ID. And from there, we need to cook. Okay? This is a receiver of view controllers. So with that in mind, let's open up. This is iOS and single view app. And then I name it. And then this is access control, UI2 access control. And store that this particular directory. And I open up storyboard. So this is a storyboard. And I'm going to use the library by holding down Option key or Alt key so that I keep using that. So first I'm going to use this label. Okay, in that label I would say login. Okay, and then text field, bring that up here. I'm going to make it long here. That's a text field. I'm going to find the button. So I have a button here. This is a button here. And I have another button. Maybe, oops, not that one. Bring it down here. I would say, so this button is called all transactions. So I would say all transactions. Okay, make it bigger by clicking this, and I want to get background and then foreground, probably white, make it a little bigger. Now I want to copy this and paste it, bring up here, line up, center. I want to make this not TX, not all TX, but let's say mine. It's mine, and I want to change the background color to purple. Okay, this or that by clicking this. And also I would like to copy this, and this should be, it's not login but password. Here could be role. Okay, and this button should be a little bigger and wider. Say that sign in background, so that make it appear together. So it'll be line break and word wrap. I think this is pretty much. So I need to minimize that, and I want to make 2 more view controllers. So bring that here, view controller here. Need another view controller. Okay. Of course, I need if I click this ones, come back here, editor, and then embed in so that I can get navigation controller. Okay, so very nicely I have controllers. From this view controller, this is a main view, and I need to link from here, there, and there, right? So this, from here, if I click all transactions, it goes there. If I click my transaction, and come back here, right? So I have to link from here, there, and from here, there. How can I do? Click this, and then holding down Control key and drag and drop here, and then choose show. Then I have this. Click this segue, and then it's ID, and I would say segue or that is ID. Remember that I want to use that later. Same thing here. Click, holding down, drag and drop, choose view, click this segue, and then I name it segue mine. So let's see how this works. Click on this triangle in the top of that Xcode. Click, then emulator is coming up. So we'll see emulator. This is emulator. Okay, so if I type here Yoon, click sign in, of course nothing. I didn't do anything. No coding yet, right? But I did something here. If I click this all transaction, it goes to one of the view controller here and come back, goes to another view controller, right? So in order to see that clearly, that's a little bit of massage here. And I'm going to have here another label, bring up here. Okay. So label, I would just say this is list all sensor data posting transactions. I'm going to copy and paste, Command C, and here Command V, not list all, but we will simply show my sensor data. Show my sensor data. Okay, let's run it. So newly build and then run. So if I click all transaction, it goes to list all sensor data posting transactions. If I click mine, they show my sensor data. All right, so far so good. And now what we need to do is that we need to code here, there, and there, right? So so in order to do that, I think we need more space. So I'm going to close this. I want to add editor here, and then I'm going to bring this coding. Okay, so this is the coding. To come back here. Okay, so I'm going to connect because I need to use the data that entered by user. So I need to connect this graphical layout to my coding. I need to connect this button, and also I need to connect these two buttons, right? So one by one, click top one, and then holding down control button and bring up here, and then there is a layout. Because this is text field, I name it starting with the TF, and then I say login. Okay. And the next one is password. So holding down control button, bring up, and then TF, password. Same thing here. TF and roll. Okay. So I declare the variables. These variables are UI variable, user interface variables. The type of those are, as you can see here, text field. Okay, they are all the same type. And then button here, and to bring that button here, there is an action. So I said btn and then sign in. Connect. All right. And then I need two more here. So that is, again, action, btn, and I would say all, and this, control the, holding down control button, and then there is an action, btn for button, and mine. Here's one more thing that we need to do. Remember that depending upon the user credential, we're going to handle these UIs. So disable or enable. Okay. Initially, all of this should be disabled. So I'm going to put here disable. So btn all dot okay. So it is not yet done. What we need to do here, holding down control button and bring down here one more time. It's not action but layout. For the same, we need to use btn all, that is a layout. Remember that if we want to enable or disable of a particular action button, then we need to declare not only action but also outlets. Okay, same thing. This, and there should be outlets, and then name btn mine. All right. So we have a pair of those for those two buttons, and therefore we can control. We can allow or disallow for user to click. So back here, if I want to do btn all, then we need to more options. So is enabled, initially enabled false. Same thing, btn mine dot is enabled, then that is false. Okay, so initially this is shown but is not clickable. So depending upon user input, we need to decide here in this button sign in. Once this button clicked, then we need to take user data and we need to make a decision. We need to turn on and off of those buttons. Therefore, user can move further. Okay, so let's see this. If I click this, nothing can be clicked, and then it doesn't move forward, right? So that is done. So we're going to work a little more on this, and then what we need to do, we need to have a the coding files, Swift files for each of these. Therefore, we can cook the data, right? When we receive some data from this button clicked, then we need to do additional work here and additional work there. So we need to have, like here, we already have, if you see here, then the class associated with this view controller is a view controller. That's this. See here, view controller dot Swift. That is already there. But if you have this, nothing. Class is not assigned. So we have to define a class. How can you define a class? Come back here, new, and choose file, and that's Swift file, and then we call it view controller and list all file. That is this, right? So we're going to work on this a little later, and so that is created. Remember this and that is created. So simple thing here is that we need to have an import UI kit and the view controller. So what happens here is that we need to have import UI kit and then class view, no, not that one. We need to have this. This is the class name. So VC underscore list all, and type of that is view controller. Okay. In this view controller, usually we have view did load. So you simply type view did load, double click it, then all the declarations are very nicely provided. In the code, we need to first download the view did load. This is it. Okay, simply done this, and then create another file. So file new and file Swift file, and then I would say that VC show mine. So VC show mine. So we have a VC show mine and VC all list. So what I would like to do is that I'm going to highlight that and then copy. In this show mine, I'm going to paste it, but this should be changed. Should be show mine, because that is, I already defined that, right? So two files are created. So come back here, storyboard. Now this guy still do not have which class, but I created here. If I choose this in the list, I may be able to see possible, oops, not that one. I may be able to see here, list all. That is the class that I want it to be associated with this view controller. Similarly, here, click that, currently empty. Now we need to choose your view, VC show mine. So that is assigned. So if I click this, then that is assigned. If I click here, then that's okay. And similarly, if I click here, then there is a view controller. So now, very nicely, all three view controllers each has the Swift file behind, and they are connected. And these three views are also connected through this button, through segues. Okay, so a little bit of coding is needed to make sure the data received from this view controller. I need to display that here. So I need another label here. Bring up. And I want to make this wider. Same thing here. Copy and paste. So wider. Okay. Now here, a view controller, we need to do coding. You remember that the user enter these two, and also role. So the user login password and roles data may be stored local or may be stored in a remote database. For simplicity, let's see that is stored here locally. Okay, so that is a variable, and that is a credential in a dictionary. This is a nested arrays. So if that is Yoon, okay, and then Yoon's password is John, and Yoon's role is, say, JP, comma, another, let's say Sam, there is login ID, and then his password is Sam Adams, and then his role is, say, admin. Okay, so this is a key, this is a value, but I have two values, one password, the other role. Therefore I encompass that in this an array. So this value has an array, this key has an array value. So they are a pair, key and value pair, and this is a key and value pair. So you can add more and more. So I'm going to compare here. Let's say if cred. So this is a dictionary. Dictionary can be accessed by the key. So user enter login. So login is the key. So I need to take a login from this tf login. So tf login dot. How can I get the text from that text field? You simply say text. Okay. And I need to use not optional but real value. So question, the exclamation mark. Okay. If I choose from here, Then I have this array as a value. When I first check user password, password is the first element in that array. So I need to have that, the first element. That should be checked with the user input password dot text. And also I need to have clear the explicit values. There's an error. Okay, that should be another one here that's exclamation mark. So if I say click, then remember here's another exclamation mark. This is exclamation mark for this text field. This is I need explicit value from this dictionary. That's what it means. Otherwise, there's an optional. So what happens is that, oh, we don't know whether that value is available. Okay, there is an error. When I have here, if there is no error, that should be nil. Therefore, we clearly say, oh, that is nil. Nil means false. Okay, so we need to control our logic in that way. Once user login and password are matched, then remember that then I can access mine, right? So btn mine is enabled, should be true. Remember that originally this is false. If their login and password are matched or verified, then I enable it so that this button works. Okay. We can do further. If CRAD same thing, tf login dot text, I would say exclamation mark. The second one, which means role. If a role is the same as tf role dot text, then we can open up this button all also. btn all dot is enabled. That should be true. Okay. Otherwise, I would not touch. Leave it false. All right. So let's how it works. So if I say here yun password John role anything and sign in, let's say because this role is not JP, role is not matched, I should not access all transactions. This is not clickable. But because my login and password are matched, I can go mine. So click this. Unexpectedly found nil while please unwrapping optional value. File 22. It's not really better. Okay. Okay. Let's try to do then prepare for the prepare function. So in the prepare function, we have for segue and sender. So I'm going to click this. Okay. So what happens here is that if this segue dot I, identifier, this is a local variable identifier. If that identifier is the same as segue all, okay, then I am going to do define destination 1 to segue dot destination is as VC list all, right? That's for all. And then destination 1. Now we need to prepare to receive the data. So here list all. Then I need to define the variable ID that I want to receive, and then type of that is a string and exclamation mark. And I am going to, here's one more thing that I need to do. Back to storyboard. Okay, here to close this. And list all. Okay, so that is good. So I need to bring this, holding down control, and drag and drop. Here there's a outlet, there is a label, and label all. Okay, label all. So this is called a label all. I'm going to write it here. So this label all dot text should be assigned by ID. Okay, ID is received from the other. Therefore, come back here. If I close this, then destination 1 dot ID is not yet. Destination 1 dot is not yet known. Destination E declared, and then LB all that text. I'm going to, this is received. This is a placeholder of the data that passed from the original, the main view controller. That value should be assigned to this UI so that we can, oh, here now, ID came up, should be known. Okay. Oh, that should be, if it is all, then I would say simple text will be listed for all users. Similarly, I need to assign this. So show mine. Here again, I would say variable my ID is string, and then come back here to make it smaller. and then I need to bring this up here. So holding down Control button and bring it here, and then that is label and mine connect. And then here lb mine.text should be from that ID. Okay, and I would just say here will be shown nicely. So that is for this. The coding file for this view controller. And come back here to the main view controller. I would do the same thing here. If segue ID is a segue of that, let's say this seg mine and this seg all. That's what we had here, right? Seg all and seg mine. So I need to close this, close that, and then if segue identifier is seg mine, and let destination 2 equal segue dot destination, and as optional vc underscore show mine, and then dest 2 dot, then I also have here that should be assigned from user entered, right? User here tf login, so that's tf login dot text exclamation. So I have this the segue settings, and then the value to pass to the next view controller independently, selectively, and turn on buttons true false, and then the other side here I assigned the value received from the main view controller to the local user interface. This is for all transactions. This is my transactions. I add my own strings followed by that. So let's see. Okay, I do not know why, so I comment this, and instead here, if password matched, then we do this. If password is not matched, the else, so I disable those two buttons and see what happens here. So I do Yoon, John, and JP sign in. Yeah, so will be listed for all users, and here Yoon will be shown. For example, if I do Sam and Adam, admin, sign in, and mine, Oh, because this is should be small, right? Let's say Sam, sign in, mine, and Sam will be shown for all those admin. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of a massage here. Actually, two things. This password should be a secure text entry. Therefore, the password, the character is not going to be shown, but dot signs. Here, label, I'm going to put it in the centralized. And then same thing here, centered. Okay, what else I need to do? Here, instead of sending, will be listed. So I would say for and I'm going to do tf role dot text. Okay. Okay. Oops. There's an error. What is it? tf role. All right. Run it. Yoon, John, JP. Sign in. Text for JP will be listed. All of those. So all text will be listed. Okay. For JP, or JP is a role, all transactions will be listed. All right. And then one more thing that we need to do here is else password is correct, but role is not. Then we need to false this only, right? Here, false. Let's try. And here, anything that I need to do, and my login and password is okay, but not the role. Then this is not clickable, but mine only. But if I give nothing, still it's not going to work. But if I do JP, then of course this works, and also all text works. Okay, thank you.